right, part three. You can tell that I'm just making these rapid fire because my hair has just slowly grown more and more dry with each video. So, okay, if you haven't watched part one, I went over a concept that I thought of in the shower called politics of proximity. I thought, let me Google it real quick to see if, because surely someone else has already talked about it. I found a book by a person named Cortina that wrote a book called Proximity Politics. I read the abstract and the summary, whatever. And then I went into what I actually thought in part two, so go back and watch those. Or if you don't care, here's part three where I talk about an additional expansion onto it because I kind of went into a foundational notion of what I thought of it in part two. So anyway, here's part three. So now that in part two I went into the way that eugenics is built into the infrastructure as well as whiteness, because those things are inherently compounding on each other, and the way that nationalism supports that, the real bread and butter of what I was thinking about in the shower when it comes to politics of proximity is the exact same philosophy that people ignore when it comes to the totally reasonable and necessary preventative action of wearing a mask, and the way that they are connected and they disregard their inherent connection physically is the exact same mentality that also Cortina speaks to clearly in their own way when it comes to people ignoring climate change and the way that the events that have taken place in recent years, especially just this year alone, are revealing the inherent connection that colonialism deliberately makes unclear to us. It deliberately segments off through national and state borders as if all of us are not connected in the same and interconnected, dehumanizing ways that it depends upon to thrive. Because if you poison one location and you disregard that all of it is connected and that poison, chlorine gas for instance, is going to fucking spread all over the fucking nation, or that if a hurricane that fucking wrecks Florida and then floods all the way to fucking Ohio, it's really, really easy to justify that fucking system if you teach people that there is nothing connected about any of us in a hyper-individualized society, and fuck that, because it's all a fucking lie. And yes, as I talked about in my dissertation, because I said this in so many words over the last at least 2 years, all five, as I've been saying all over my fucking social media all this fucking time, the same exact philosophy that disrespects our bodily autonomy and consent is an inherently colonial perspective, because the same individual philosophy that disregards the fact that people deserve to choose whether or not they become pregnant or whether or not they engage in any kind of sexual activity that only an adult can consent with is the same violent society that rationalizes and disregards the interconnection of that happening on a macro level within a deeply carceral and fucking fascist society. Because the exact same society that does not wear a fucking mask or lies to their partner as if they'll wear a fucking mask is the same fucking society that stealths people who have sex with people who lie to them about wearing a condom. That's not a fucking coincidence. It is the same fucking thing. And then this happens, the macro equivalent of that is workplaces that force people back into the fucking physical office to rationalize real estate agencies, or universities that ignore a fucking pandemic that continues to happen because it is supporting a local real estate agency and an entire economy that depends upon the relocations of tens of thousands of people who are now persistently reinfecting themselves with a disease that it shows 5 years of research that if you become repeatedly sickened, you will get disabled and you will die of so many fucking things. The same society that constantly builds everything with fucking poison and then disregards the entire ecological nature of which PFAS and fucking plastic and all other kinds of volatile organic chemicals being released into our fucking homes and ruining our indoor air quality, causing all kinds of fucking cancer. And yes, I've had a lot of coffee today.